move on from Chelsea to Nottingham Forest to talk about some of their financial fair play woes. Now, Paul, we know, of course, that Everton's point deduction was reduced from 10 points to 6. How do you think most Forest fans are feeling now?
Well, they're expecting 6, aren't they? And I think that's the regulation that's been set. I mean, we all talked about the Everton points deduction. They've been hit with 10, and I thought it was harsh. It was an example of the Premier League proving that they don't need this independent regulator. All of a sudden, the independent regulator potentially comes in to sit over the Premier League. The Premier League show the teeth, they growl at Everton and go, right, we'll take 10 points off you for one breach. Then they have an appeal, and an independent board look at the appeal. They decide that 10's harsh, and they decide that 6 is fair for the crime that they've committed. Nobody's saying that they're not guilty of it, but that what they're guilty of is 6 points according to the appeal, and that's the precedent that's been set. So now, if Forest and Everton are found guilty of the charges that's pending over them, then you would expect that Forest and Everton will both be hit with a 6-point charge. And I think that would be a disastrous issue for Nottingham Forest. They're not playing particularly well. I mean, they played okay last night against Man United. They were unlucky to lose in the Cup. They've got Liverpool at home on Saturday. I'm going to that game. Seen Forest a few times. Defensively, they're far too porous, concede too many goals. You look at the bottom of that league table, for me, Burnley and Sheffield United are done, regardless of anyone's points deductions. They've got not got enough points, not got enough wins. Those two are down. It's between 3. It's going to be between Everton, Forest and Luton as to who stays up. We've talked about this before so many times on this pod, though. I mean, it's almost ridiculous, ludicrous that the Premier League season could finish. The appeal process is still going on till halfway through the Euros at the end of this season. The season could finish. We could have teams thinking they're relegated, and then 3-4 weeks after the season's finished, the appeals are heard, and points may get given back, points may not get given back, and we don't know where we're going to be. But this affects games as well. This affects mental attitude going into games. It affects how managers approach games. So managers down the bottom, if you manage Rob Edwards at Luton, at Everton, Sean Dyche, you might go to the last 2 games of the season thinking, right, we only need 2 points. Set your team up to get a draw away from home, look to win at home, however it pans out. You may set your team up in a way to try and get a certain amount of points. 2 weeks later, you find out you actually needed 2 wins instead of 2 draws. I mean, it just throws the whole league at the end of the season into a bit of a farce, to be honest. But Forest and Everton are in trouble.
And Alex, what have you made of the whole situation? Of course, we've now seen, like Paul's mentioned, we've now seen Everton go through that appeal. They got some points back. Forest are going through the same thing. Everton have the second charge to go. What have you made of this whole debacle in the Premier League?
I mean, it's obviously a mess. I can't say I'm an expert on this issue. I know more about Everton. I mean, can you just describe what's the Nottingham Forest situation then? I mean, I don't know too much about that one.
It's basically to do with PSR that, again, they had the £105 million threshold. They went over the line, and they effectively, all the players that they bought have resulted in them not being FFP compliant, in essence.
I think it's difficult, though, isn't it? Because you get, you know, any newly promoted side, I know Everton don't fit in that category, and you obviously want to stay in the Premier League, so you have to invest, but you're restricted. And I think I do think that's a strange way of running the Premier League, because you've got Newcastle who want to progress as well. I mean, they're stepping on, you know, they're almost crossing the line of FFP. You know, Chelsea, we get away with it because we generate a lot of income, but the reason we generate income is because of the money we invested 20 years ago. So if you don't give other clubs a chance to do that, it is unfair. I mean, that's the reality of it, because you've got these owners who come in, they want to invest, and then they're restricted. You know, there was a time where owners would be criticised for not spending the money. Now you have people that want to spend the money, but they can't spend the money. So how does that work? And also, how do you improve your league when you're not allowed to invest in new players? I mean, that doesn't make much sense to me either. I think that the points deduction from Everton was harsh. I think 6 points is fair. But again, I would probably say, from what I've heard about regulators, I do think the Premier League needs some form of help or some form of supervision. You know, there's a lot going on, and we just want to focus on the football. And it seems like every season there's more and more things that have nothing to do with football that are creeping in. You know, I don't want football to get political, but you know, I could say as a Chelsea fan, the government get involved with your club, we have to change our ownership. I mean, if there was a regulator, potentially that might not have happened. There's obviously going to be other situations at other clubs. So I can't say I'm an expert on the issue, but from Everton's standpoint, that seems fair. And from Forest, I mean, it's just unlucky, isn't it? You're capped with what you can spend.
And Paul, like you kind of mentioned in there, do you think the Premier League now are under pressure that actually if they give a different points deduction outcome, if they do anything harsher, actually it sets a benchmark in the Premier League, or anything lower than Everton's could be actually seen as more favourable to them? Because as we know, as you kind of mentioned, they are definitely teetering on that side of relegation.
Yeah, I think, listen, the precedent's been set. I mean, it's one charge. Both clubs are facing one charge. I don't know about the severity of each charge, but I think obviously you can't grade a charge on severity. You're either charged or you're not charged. And if you're found guilty of your charge, the precedent seems to have been set with 6 points. I mean, you look at it from a Manchester City point of view, who have 100+ charges. I mean, how many leagues could they fall through? I mean, you could still deduct Manchester City 40 points and they'd still finish in the Europa Conference League ahead of Chelsea this season. But listen, I mean, the precedence does seem to have been set. But I think that the thing with the Premier League is it's the timescale. It's the timing of this. I mean, how long the Everton appeal was heard, then why did we have to wait to hear the verdict of it? Why is everything so long and so drawn out? I mean, we know what's going on with Forest, we know what's going on with Everton. Can somebody in an office somewhere not do a little bit of overtime and get it passed through a little bit quicker? I understand there's lawyers, I understand there's certain protocols and certain things that have to be done. But surely the only thing, I mean, I've said it a million times, you're punishing one thing and one thing only, and it's the fans and it's the supporters. It's the product that they're watching. It's the quality of the football they're watching on the pitch. Players are playing under different stress, different strains. The end of the season, fans are going to be going to Goodison Park. They're going to be going to the City Ground. They're not going to know what result the team needs. Yes, we know that every team needs to win, but actually, is a draw good enough today? They're going to leave the ground going, oh, well, I don't know if a draw is good enough, or how many points do we need to stay up? The fact that this is happening mid-season, for me, really gets to me. This should be done at either end of a season. Don't deduct a team points. I don't know the answer to this question. We've said it before. What is the punishment? How do you fine a team that are getting a charge against them for financial irregularities? Do you punish them financially even more? But don't punish the fans. Don't take points off them mid-season. If there is a points deduction, do it before the season starts. Have a structure where there's a judge, a jury in place, the decisions are made, but don't leave a season up in the air like this. I mean, what we're coming to now, everybody looks forward to the running towards the end of a season, whether it's a title race, whether it's the European places, whether it's relegation. Relegation often takes centre stage because the last few years we've not had that good of a title race. So relegation this season, from April onwards, we look forward to the running to the end of the season. But now we're not going to find out the Premier League table until the Euros kick off. It's the timescale for me is the most frustrating thing, and it's punishing the fans, and it's punishing the fans halfway through the season, taking points off their team. Find other ways of hurting the club, because it's not the fans that make the decision on the financial irregularities. It's not the players who make the decisions. It's not the manager, but the people who get punished are the manager, the players, and the fans during the season.
Let me ask you this. Sorry, it's interesting you talk about financial punishment, but if they were to do that with Man City, it wouldn't affect them, and they'd probably.
And that's why I don't know the answer to the question. I don't know what is a fair and what is a reflective punishment. But you punish them financially by deducting points and letting them go into a different league. So I suppose that's a financial punishment in a way in itself anyway. But for me, a points deduction hurts the players, the fans and the manager a lot more than it hurts the ownership of the club. Is it a punishment that fits the crime? I don't know.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.